Welcome back to Empower Her. I'm Priya, and today's guest is someone you already know and love. Shirley Weir from Menopause Chicks is back for round two. This time we're getting practical. So, Shirley walks through um, her exact script for talking to your doctor about menopause because knowing what to say and how to say it changes everything. So, let's dive in. If you're listening for the first time, this podcast is about empowering women, whether it's with their finances, careers, or health. We bring in different experts from different fields to talk about those topics, give advice, give tips. And today we have Shirley Weir, who has been on this podcast before, and we did an episode before as well. So, welcome back, Shirley.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, if you haven't listened to that podcast before, Shirley is a menopause expert. She's also an advocate for women's health. She's the founder of Menopause Chicks and menopause.work. So, she knows a lot on the subject about menopause. And in the first episode, we talked a little bit about the common questions around menopause, and a little bit about how to have conversation with your doctor, because that's, I think, something that everyone struggles with. And we got a lot of response from people saying that, whether we talked about symptoms, whether we talked about different things that people go through when they're going through perimenopause or menopause, and they said it was really helpful.
Oh, good.
So I was like, I definitely need to invite Shirley back again to talk a little bit more and help out where we can. So today we want to focus on something very specific, which is having a conversation around menopause with your doctor and how to have it, what you should say, how to prepare yourself. So that's what we will get into today. So really excited to get into this, Shirley.
All right.
But yeah, I think initially I would say is, what do you think is a barrier for people or women specifically to talk to their doctors about menopause?
Well, there are so many barriers to accessing the quality healthcare that we need and deserve. I don't let's see, where should I begin? I'll begin with the fact that research shows that over half of women leave their health appointments feeling dismissed or disappointed. And that's a huge glaring statistic. And it's even bigger for Indigenous women and women of color.
Mhm,
So when we talk about barriers, I think it's important to lay it out on the table that we are both in Canada, right?
mhm,
So 7 million Canadians right now do not have a primary care provider, a family
mhm,
doctor or nurse practitioner that they can go to sort of be the hub of their healthcare journey.
mhm,
So we begin with not having a doctor. That's a barrier. And
mhm,
then if we have a doctor, over half of us are walking out of that appointment feeling dismissed or disappointed with the care options provided. That's concerning for
mhm,
me.
mhm,
And then on top of that, we know from the research that the top two reasons for that healthcare visit in the first place was menstruation
mhm,
or menopause. So
mhm,
all of a sudden, I have a lot of bells and stars going off in my head. It's like,
mhm,
what the heck can we do about this?
mhm,
And I'm involved in a lot of conversations locally, nationally, internationally. And I can promise you that at every table, every conversation I'm involved in, often what comes up is we got to change those doctors. We got
mhm,
to educate them more. We got to recruit more. We have to give them more education at medical school, or we have to give them more education on the job. And I don't know about you, Priya, but have you ever tried to change someone, or have you ever
mhm.
tried to change a system?
Mm.
It's really challenging or nearly impossible to
Yep.
change someone else.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
it was that thought that actually brought me back to the work that I do, which is primarily with consumers, women, patients. I host a private online community called Menopause Chicks, and we have 60,000 women there.
mhm,
Yes, they are asking me lots of technical questions sometimes, about their experiences, their symptoms, what's on the menu for treatment. But often there is a thread that goes through all of those questions and all of those, lived experience stories. And the common thread is I don't know how to approach my doctor, or I don't know how to go. Often it's I don't know how to go back to my doctor
mm,
and ask for what I deserve. So,
mhm,
long story short, I took the information, the education, or sorry, the research, and I thought I have to think beyond educating more doctors because that's not my sphere of influence.
mhm,
And I had to look myself in the mirror or hold our community up to the mirror and say, what can we do differently? And the reality is that none of us have ever been taught how to go to our healthcare
mhm,
appointments, right?
mhm,
We don't
mhm,
know how to prepare for that appointment. And so what we learned in our own research was that everyone was kind of showing up differently. And there
mhm,
were some common threads. There was certainly the group of women who are like, I don't have any problem going into my doctor. I just print out 90 pages off of Dr. Google. I slap it down on her desk and I say, I'm not leaving here until you X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
there's definitely not a lack of confidence in women. So there's that pool.
mhm,
And then there's like another, there's other extremes too, which might look like going to our appointment and saying and like almost forgetting why we were there because we made the appointment 3 weeks ago and
mhm,
we really like our doctor and we're a people pleaser and
mhm,
we talk to our doctor about how our kids are doing and we ask them about their kids. All of a sudden 7 to 8 minutes of a 9 minute appointment are
mhm.
eaten up with niceties.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you only have 1 to 2 minutes left to talk about your health concern, there's a really good chance you're going to leave feeling disappointed,
Yeah. Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So,
Exactly.
and then there's a whole bunch of different scenarios in between. So, what
Mhm,
I've done with Menopause Chicks is I have, first of all, I believe wholeheartedly, and I can prove this time and time again, that the more informed we are before we go to our appointment, the
mhm,
better the health outcome will be.
mhm,
If
mhm,
you walk in blindly, I don't care whether it's to the dentist, to a lawyer, or to your doctor, if you don't have some understanding of dental care, legal affairs, or menopause and how your body works, it's going to take longer and
mhm,
probably be a bit more frustrating to get through that process. And for, obviously the traditional healthcare system that we have in Canada, it has barriers. For example, I've already alluded to the fact that many appointments are less than 10 minutes long.
mhm,
And
mhm,
for individuals who are dealing with issues such as sleep, heavy bleeding, crossing over into anxiety, depression, you know, how do you do that in 9 minutes? So
mhm,
we created something. I mean, the umbrella, I call it Speak Menopause. It's really to invite everyone to get as informed as they possibly can about
mhm,
options and then walk into their healthcare appointment with an understanding of what's on the menu,
mhm,
just like you would if you're going to a restaurant, and
mhm,
an invitation to say to the scientist that's, in charge of your healthcare, will you work with me to help
mhm,
me decide what the best options are for me?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I think that's a very proactive approach to take. And,
Very.
as you said, that's also something that is in your control. So
Yeah.
I think that that's something that is going to, also make you feel a little bit better because obviously when the responsibility is to, as you said, to change someone else, then it becomes very, very hard. Instead, like, if you can think about what can I do, you can get a little bit of that control back, and help yourself in that situation. So yeah, I'm
I
really
love
glad
that.
that you took that work, and you've done a lot of research on this and worked with a lot of clients. So let's talk about preparation first. So
Sure.
how does someone prepare themselves, let's say, for their first appointment with a doctor? They've never talked about menopause with their doctor before. So how would you say that this is how you prepare yourself?
So, I have an acronym for script tips, but before we get there, I think it's probably important to highlight 2 to 3 things of how you can prepare. One is, as you said, it might require a paradigm shift for you to put health and health decision making on your shoulders.
Hmm.
There's kind of a nuance that we don't often speak of in Canada, especially in healthcare, especially where we're like, oh, my doctor prescribed me X, or my doctor sent me for this test. And so my first recommendation would be flip that script a little bit, take ownership and say, oh, I'm testing my X because I'm curious about my Y. And if you just can frame it that way, it does really help to, as you say, kind of take ownership and control.
Hmm.
Number two would be get as informed as you possibly can from a reputable source. And
Hmm.
that can be questionable in today's climate and culture. But I teach evidence based menopause education. And one of the biggest gaps in menopause education, I mean, I find it fairly simple, but not easy. And that is, we were never taught how our hormones work when
Hmm.
cycles are regular.
Hmm.
Many of us were taught how to make a baby
Hmm.
and how to prevent a pregnancy. But we were
Hmm.
never really taught the roles and responsibilities of estrogen and
Hmm.
progesterone in particular.
Hmm.
So once
Hmm.
you have that knowledge, and I'll just give you an example, a common example for women in perimenopause is heavy bleeding or
Hmm.
changes to heavy bleeding. So if that is a concern that you are about to go to your doctor, it is worthwhile understanding what
Hmm.
the root causes of that heavy bleeding might be.
Hmm.
The majority of my audience thinks it's bad luck,
Oh, wow.
right?
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? If you
Yeah.
ask someone why they think they're experiencing heavy bleeding, they're like, my mother did, my grandmother
Mhm.
did. I guess it's just my turn. No,
Mhm.
it's actually
Mhm.
progesterone is declining,
Mhm.
and estrogen is fluctuating. And for the first time in your life, those two hormones have switched places and you are
Mhm.
experiencing a change to bleeding.
Mhm.
Or you might have fibroids, which are
Mhm.
also caused by a decline in progesterone. So having that
Mhm.
information is really empowering. And then
Mhm.
the third piece, and you don't have to be a scientist for this,
Mhm.
but the third piece is understanding what's on the menu for you.
Mhm.
So you might be listening to this podcast and think, oh, yeah, no, I'm experiencing heavy bleeding, but I don't want to go to my doctor because I don't want to have a hysterectomy, right?
Mhm.
Fear might be getting in the way there. It is
Mhm.
more empowering if, in this third piece, if you understand what all your options are for
Mhm.
managing heavy bleeding.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
might be the birth control pill. It might be getting the hormone based IUD. It might be progesterone therapy. It might be an ablation. And it might be a hysterectomy if that is entirely what you want to do. But before that appointment or before you go to a restaurant with your friend, it's really nice to know, oh, what do
Mhm.
they have on the menu? And I
Mhm.
think the same thing is very true for healthcare, so that when you get into the appointment, if your doctor jumps to hysterectomy, for example, and I would hope that they wouldn't, but if they jump to that end, then you're in a position to say, I understand that that is, an option, but for me, I'm going to rule out surgery for now, and I would like to talk to you about an IUD versus progesterone therapy or something like that. So
Mhm,
those are
mhm,
the three things that I would, and I use this for like all kinds of analogies. If you were going to a lawyer today, right, you
mhm,
would do a little bit of research. You wouldn't just walk
mhm,
in with a blank slate
mhm,
because you're probably paying that lawyer $500 an hour and you
mhm,
want to make the most of your time together, but you're also really invested in the outcome. And the
mhm,
same thing needs to happen with our healthcare.
mhm.
Um, yeah, I'll stop there. And I can go through the script tips if you like next.
Yeah, I think this all comes to also like kind of, helping you make decisions as well. So, as you said, like preparing yourself first and, getting some more information and knowledge, it's really going to help you like decide because yeah, a doctor could present you with different options, and you would be able to make better decisions for yourself if you have like much more information on your hands. So yeah, I'm glad that you talked about how people can prepare themselves. um, I also kind of see a lot of people, getting confused between perimenopause and
Mm,
menopause. And before they go to a doctor, they are often confused that, oh, like, am I going through perimenopause? Am I going through menopause? I'm like, am I in between? Is there a way to kind of know what's happening with you, or kind of differentiate between, just kind of like to give the audience like basic knowledge about it?
yeah, absolutely. So menopause is one day. So you don't technically go through it, you reach it. And that one day is the end of ovulation. Now, most of us don't know when we've stopped ovulating. So the way that we tell whether or not we've reached menopause is by our period, if we still have a uterus. So that
Mhm,
is 12 consecutive period free months that
mhm,
you can then determine you are in menopause. Why is that important? Well, the reason that that is important is because you need to know whether or not you can still get pregnant.
mhm,
And part of the menopause conversation that often gets left out, we're so busy talking about access to care and symptoms and so on, is the fact that contraception is a key decision making
mhm,
point on the calendar. So I like to emphasize how menopause is the end of ovulation, not the end of periods, but the end of ovulation.
mhm,
Before menopause is a phase of life called perimenopause, and it
mhm,
is very nuanced. It's
mhm,
very unpredictable and
mhm,
it's different for everyone. It is not a
mhm,
disease. It is not a condition. It is not a reason to go to your doctor. Many women sail through perimenopause, but how it is defined best, I believe, is P-E-R-I, means
mhm,
around.
mhm,
So perimenopause means around menopause. It also means that our bodies are preparing for the end of ovulation.
mhm,
During that preparation for the end of ovulation and the end of reproduction, hormones fluctuate and then they start to decline.
mhm,
That, as I said, can be a non event for some individuals. But for others, it can be something that turns our world upside down. So
mhm,
I was always never kept track of my period, just came and went, no big deal. And
mhm,
then in my early to mid 40s, I started to notice changes that I didn't really know anything about. And my
mhm,
period was still regular.
mhm,
So I was left kind of confused, asking myself, what is this anxiety? What is this depression? I've never had PMS before. Why am I
mhm,
experiencing these things? Do I have early onset dementia? Like
mhm,
I went through all of those questions. And then of course with education and the learning that I did, I realized no, it was my hormones fluctuating and preparing for
mhm,
menopause, which I reached when I was 49.
mhm,
I think that in today's climate and conversation, it's so great that we're having more podcasts and more conversations about this. But I do worry that perimenopause having more exposure hasn't
Mm,
led to greater understanding. I
mm,
worry that some people might hear perimenopause and think they have to go to the doctor. And
mm,
that's not necessarily true. We don't always take
mm,
our 10-year-old daughters to the doctor when their
mm,
bodies are preparing for the beginning of ovulation. You
mm,
don't necessarily need medical care as your body is preparing for the end of
mm,
ovulation, but you might.
mm,
And
mm,
the thing that we want everyone to hear is that if you're experiencing vasomotor symptoms, which are hot flashes, and night sweats, if your sleep is disruptive and impacting your quality of life, if you are experiencing anxiety and depression, if you are experiencing changes to bleeding that is impacting your quality of life, that deserves a conversation with your healthcare provider. And the same is true for postmenopause. It's a slightly different conversation for postmenopause because after we stop ovulating, we no longer produce the progesterone and estrogen that our bodies used to make on their own.
mm,
We are now at greater risk for things like cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, dementia, and genital urinary conditions like vulva and vaginal dryness and reoccurring UTIs. And I think that the previous language around going through menopause, it kind of um, it it was interpreted by individuals and society as, oh, this is just something that if I white knuckle myself through this,
mm,
if I hang on tight, if I grin and bear it, I'll be fine. And when I
mm,
get on the other side, all will be well. We
mm,
didn't do a good enough job educating women, our mothers and our grandmothers, on the health impacts of
mm,
what living without that ovarian function, how it can impact our heart, brain, bone, and genital urinary health. So that's why I love doing podcasts and having conversations
mm.
like this.
Yeah, and especially I feel like a lot of people, think that estrogen is just related to maybe, ovulation
Yeah,
and maybe just like your skin. But they don't know that it actually plays a very important role in so many things in your body, whether it's your cardiovascular health or brain health or you know um, all the other body parts that we talk
true.
about. So yeah.
We have estrogen receptors in almost every part of our body.
Mm,
So in your eyes, in your mouth, in your ears, like estrogen is our lifeline, really.
mm, mhm,
And when it's gone, doesn't mean
mhm,
that it's all doom and gloom, but it
mhm,
can also result in some very uncomfortable, disruptive health experiences. And the last thing that we want is half our population to be suffering when there
mhm,
are easy, viable solutions.
exactly. um And let's talk a little bit about, once you go to the doctor
Sure.
and once you start talking about, your symptoms, um, are there like any specific sentences or words that, women should not use that could like trigger a dismissal or, has that ever come up before?
Well, I do not recommend referring to Dr. Google or ChatGPT. I do always recommend that you refer to the fact that you have invested in your own education. But I think that we don't need to trigger a health professional with, our layperson scientific research that just involved a thumb scroll when they have just invested 7 to 10 years of their life in medical school. You are
Mhm,
sitting across from a scientist,
mhm,
and that scientist took an oath
mhm,
to take care of you and to do no harm. And
mhm,
so it's really good if we can maybe even ground ourselves a little bit and be like, oh, I am like meeting head to head with a scientific partner here. I have the lived experience. I am ultimately responsible for my health, but how
mhm,
blessed am I to have this person sitting
Mhm.
across from me who has the tools, who can
Mhm.
point me in the right direction.
Mhm.
Um, and that's really easy for me to say because I'm not in the room when these conversations go on, these,
Mhm.
anecdotal dismissal and disappointing conversations. But I'll share with you the script tips
Mhm.
that we developed that are they were directly created in response to that research that showed
Mhm.
54% of women were leaving their health appointments feeling dismissed. And
Mhm.
the reason we created these script tips and the reason Menopause Chicks have been practicing them is because we want to make sure that you walk into your appointment feeling confident and informed, and you
Yeah.
walk out of your appointment feeling
Mhm.
confident and informed. And I will preface it by saying that might be somewhat of a euphoric goal, because many of our health appointments we're requested to only bring one concern at a time.
Mhm.
So you go to your health appointment and you're not sleeping and you're bleeding heavily. Which one do you pick? Like, it just seems so inequitable and so unfair.
Mhm.
But I'll walk you through the script tips as an example. I guess we can just make up a little avatar
Perfect.
as we go. And
Okay.
I don't know if you have visuals on your podcast or not, but I can send you a slide that kind of shows this visual as well. The
I can,
act
yeah, I can add that in the description if people want to
Perfect.
see the visual. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. So it's a two-part acronym. The first part is GAP, GAP. The second part is SPEAK, SPEAK.
Mhm.
So the reason why we use GAP is to keep eye contact with your doctor. You don't
Mhm.
want them looking down at their screen or their notes. You want to
Mhm.
be able to have a conversation where you're looking into each other's eyes. So you
Mhm.
say G is for goal. My
Mhm.
goal today is to talk to you about perimenopause.
Mhm.
As you know, I'm 48 years old. You say your age, even though it might be in your chart. This is a great way to keep eye contact. And my last period was 8 days ago.
Mhm.
Okay. So A is for age, P is for date of last period,
Mhm.
GAP. Then
Mhm.
you very quickly go into speak. S is for
Mhm.
symptoms.
Mhm.
P is for the impact of
Mhm.
those symptoms. This
Mhm.
was the piece that nobody was taking to their health appointments when we started our
Mhm.
research.
Mhm.
Everyone was very good at being able to describe their symptoms,
Mhm.
but they were less good at being able to describe how that impacted their life.
Mhm.
What happens if you don't tell someone the impact of something? They're going to make up a story on their own.
Mhm.
What happens if they make up a story on their own? You are
Mhm.
likely to feel dismissed or
Mhm.
disappointed how
Mhm.
and how that conversation unfolds. So if I say to my doctor, "Oh, you know what, doctor? My symptoms, I just don't sleep the way I used to."
Mhm.
Your doctor has no idea what that means. How did you
Mhm.
used to sleep? They might have not slept for 7 years when they were a medical student. They don't know what that means.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
you say my symptoms are I'm not sleeping the way I used to be a good sleeper. Now I wake up every morning at 3 a.m. The second P, SP, is for impact. So the P of
Mhm.
impact. Lack of sleep is impacting my quality of life so much so that I realize I'm calling in sick twice a month.
Mhm. Mhm.
Data. Doctors love data.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
is impacting my income.
Mhm.
Now, nobody can argue with that. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what kind of doctor you are. You are
Mhm.
sitting there thinking, wow, I've got this patient sitting in front of me who is calling in sick twice a month. I have
Mhm.
tools in my toolkit that can help her with her sleep.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's
Exactly.
almost like this magic light bulb goes off at that point where it's like, okay, where do we go from here? And if you have
Mhm.
to or want to extend that conversation, because I recognize they are often more complex, um,
Mhm.
depending on overlapping health conditions or whatever, but E is for education. And
Mhm.
so I remind my members to speak about what they've learned. So, an
Mm-hmm.
example of E for education would be, I've listened to this podcast about perimenopause, and I learned that progesterone is the hormone responsible for sleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's just bringing a little tidbit of what you've learned because you're in perimenopause, you're not sleeping, and you've learned that progesterone declines. Huh, I'm wondering if I can have a conversation about that. A is for affirmation. And an
Mm-hmm.
affirmation can be anything that you want it to be. I do encourage my members to say things like, I know I deserve to feel amazing, but you might also say something like, I know that I deserve 7 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I am not meant to get up and pee 3 times in the night. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that deserving statement that allows you to say, like I'm not going to give up on this one. So I hope that you'll work with me. And that's the K part. K is for key next steps. So then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, can you please walk me through the pros and cons of what my options are so that I can make the best decision for me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah,
it.
that was amazing. And yeah, I think you can cover definitely cover that under 10 minutes as well because it's also kind of like organized in your head. So you will, articulate it better and then, stay on the course as well because then you're not like rambling
Yeah.
on as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I've done it so many times. I can do it in 30 seconds. If you go to speakmenopause.com, I've created a fill in the blank form.
mm,
And so
mhm,
you can answer the questions and it will email you script tips, which you can use verbatim or you can adapt to your own personal relationship you have with your doctor.
exactly. I'll definitely put the link in the description below. So if anyone wants to use that, feel free to use it. But yeah, I think that would really help, especially with doctors as well, because as much as we want each doctor to give their all their full attention and a lot of time. Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Yeah,
But what we can do is prepare ourselves and use as much time we have to make that a success. So I
yeah, well
think,
said.
yeah. So I think that the speak menopause is definitely going to help a lot of people with that. Um, so let's say you present your symptoms and the doctor's is giving you options and maybe you don't like any of the options they're giving you, and you say that okay, I feel like this option is the best for me, but you get challenged on that. How would you deal with that kind of a situation?
That's a great question. So, in the confidence bucket, I have a lot of phrases or words that I recommend that you think about. In that particular case, let's just say that, I go in for heavy bleeding and my doctor says, well, I'm going to refer you to get a hysterectomy. We'll get that surgery booked. I'm going to say, you know what, Dr. Smith, that doesn't sound like it will work for me. And then
Hmm.
you're going to pause.
Hmm.
You're going to say, that doesn't work for me. And you're going to pause. And that might be a millisecond of uncomfortable silence, but it's really powerful
Hmm.
because it explains that you are not there to have a body part removed,
Hmm.
that you are there. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with choosing hysterectomy. I'm just um, trying to ignite a movement where we understand all of the options, and having your uterus removed fixes the bleeding, but it doesn't
Hmm.
fix what caused the bleeding in the
Hmm.
first place. So if you know that, then you could say, I'm really more interested in treating the root cause. Do you
Hmm.
think that I should pursue getting an IUD, or would it be possible for me to explore the benefits of progesterone therapy?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
That doesn't sound like it will work for me is one of probably one of the most powerful things that we can use with our kids, with our doctor, with our boss, with our
Oh yeah,
colleagues. Like, just
definitely.
save that one.
Yeah, and then I think the pause is actually really powerful as well because, that kind of like gives the other person to think about, okay, this doesn't work for her. And, you don't have to say anything else. And it just kind of leaves room for them to offer maybe other options or, have that conversation
Absolutely.
further. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, is there any particular sentence that you will ask every woman to take them with um, with them to the doctor?
I thought about this before our call today. Um,
Mhm,
I think I'm going to go with this one. I think that everyone should take this line with them, and that is it's a listening technique.
mhm,
And you say, so what I hear you saying is blank.
mhm, mhm,
I feel that this is probably missed in many healthcare appointments, and it leads to a lot of confusion,
mhm,
if not the disappointment we were alluding to. So,
mhm,
uh, it could be a day for you. It could be a day where you haven't slept well. You've been taking in a lot of information by listening to this podcast, even. And then you go to your doctor. Your doctor rhymes off three things. It might include blood work. It might, blah, blah, if this, then that. And you're overwhelmed. And if you can't say what you've heard, which might
mhm,
just be the last thing your doctor said, not the first two or three,
mhm,
there's going to be confusion. So
mhm,
it's really powerful if you can say, so what I hear you saying is that we will test my ferritin, which is
mhm,
to looking for iron deficiency, for example, but that I can go ahead and start taking iron today. I can go to my drugstore right now and pick up some iron. And then your doctor's going to confirm or deny if you heard the instructions
mhm.
properly.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a really good tip. Yeah, I mean that applies to a lot of situations, but especially in this situation because obviously you're making a lot of decisions. You're also taking in a lot of information from the doctor as well. So, okay. Um, and when it comes to, seeking a doctor for any kind of symptoms, um, do you recommend someone going to like, their general family doctor, or do you recommend going to like a specific specialist for menopause or perimenopause?
So we're in a very fortunate position right now in that there are more and more opportunities to access menopause care. And I think that it is a consumer's choice, really.
Mhm,
I am a firm believer that menopause care fits in primary care, which
mhm,
means we should be able to access the majority of menopause care with our family doctor or a nurse practitioner. But that
mhm,
said, you might have extended health benefits that allow you to see a naturopathic doctor. A
mhm,
naturopathic doctor might have a 50-minute appointment that might be ideal for you to
mhm,
walk through contraception decisions, sleep care, menopause care, investing in your heart health. Like,
mhm,
you might be able to cross off two or three of those things in one appointment. That's very exciting,
mhm,
especially for somebody who may have been challenged with what to do next for a long time. And then there are new portals that range from online prescribers. I just used one yesterday myself.
mhm,
I'm in a situation where I'm 59 years old and I've been using the same menopause hormone therapy for nearly 10 years. I know what
mhm,
works for me. I only
mhm,
need to review it once a year with my doctor, but in between I can do a quick renewal online
mhm,
and it's sweet. It shows up on my front step. So that's really cool.
mhm,
But then there are other online providers that offer 45, 55-minute appointments that, darn it, I just know women deserve it. They
Mm,
deserve that quality
mhm,
conversation. And
mhm,
I mean, how we've been on here for 40 minutes already today. This is how long
mhm,
it takes to talk about women's health. So I
mhm,
love that consumers, women, patients, they're in the driver's seat and they get to choose. If
mhm,
you do choose to expand your healthcare team,
mhm,
I do also think it's important that you report back to your
mhm,
family doctor and tell them what you decided.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think that we should compartmentalize, but say, oh, doctor, I just wanted to update you. I saw a pelvic floor physio. I've had my
Mhm,
mammogram and I'm working with a naturopathic doctor on my menopause hormone therapy. That
mhm,
should be in my chart.
yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, and obviously there's a lot of other as you said, treatments that are offered, whether it's like naturopathic medicine or other kinds of medication, or even like supplements even. What have you seen with your clients when it comes to that? Is there like different nuances to it, or what has your experience been?
There's definitely nuances. So in British Columbia and in Ontario, naturopathic doctors can prescribe menopause hormone therapy the same way your family doctor can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting. I wish more provinces were the same, but it means that you can get a prescription for a pharmaceutical grade treatment that's evidence based, that's Menopause Society and Health Canada approved. You can get that from a naturopathic doctor, and that's amazing. I don't speak too much about, well, I don't even like the word supplements because it's very divided. Supplements is an umbrella term. And
Mm-hmm.
underneath that umbrella is a lot of products that you are going to waste your money on.
Mm-hmm.
Menopause care and healthcare is not DIY. It's not do it yourself. So stop pulling off the $20 bottle off the shelf and think that there's a magic potion inside. But
Mm-hmm.
also underneath the umbrella of supplements are some really key quality vitamins and nutrients that our bodies need. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are iron deficient, you need an iron supplement. If you are
Mm-hmm.
vitamin D deficient, you
Mm-hmm.
need vitamin D supplements. And so those decisions, I would hope, would be guided by your healthcare provider.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. um and most women, I think, also, they have another question in their mind when they're thinking about going to the doctor, or maybe having like a conversation, is like, should they go by themselves?
Mm.
Should they take someone with them? um what have you gotten those questions from women?
I don't get that question too often. I remember, talking about it in the early days. I guess I've invested so much of my energy into making sure that you, the decision maker, feel as empowered as possible in that conversation. But there's nothing wrong with taking an ally with you, a
Mm-hmm.
friend, a sister, a partner, whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they've listened to this podcast too. Right? Like we want two informed people going to the appointment, not two confused people, I think, if we're looking for the best health outcome. And
Yeah.
and one little tip I would say going in, if you do take an ally with you, is have a little chit chat before you going in on what their role is. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to your appointment with you, I want you to tell me, do you want me to write everything down? Do you want me to just sit in the corner and write everything that I hear down? Or do you want me to interrupt? Like, I have to
Mm-hmm.
understand my role if I'm there as a good supportive ally.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Um, I think another thing that I also wanted to kind of touch on was, post menopause as
Sure.
well, because I think that's also an area that is not often talked about as much too. So, what does post menopause care look like?
So postmenopause is we are no longer ovulating. Our ovaries are no longer producing the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that they used to. And because of that, our cardiovascular health, our bone health, our brain health, and our genitourinary health is impacted. Another way of saying that is that we miss the ingredients that our body used to make on our own. It's
Mm-hmm.
not my job to tell anyone that they should take menopause hormone therapy, but it
Mm-hmm.
is definitely my job to encourage every person to have a curious conversation with their healthcare provider about what the potential benefits might be for them.
Mm-hmm.
We know how we talked about perimenopause being nuanced. Well, postmenopause can be very nuanced in that same regard because you could be listening to this at 52, postmenopause, let's say, and you're like, I'm okay. I don't know what she's talking about. I feel great. I don't feel any different than I used to. And that
Mm-hmm.
might be true. And you could also go through life and develop osteoporosis on your 80th birthday. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the information about how estrogen helps protect our bone density, and if you're not aware that you are going to lose 20% of your bone mass in the first 5 years of postmenopause alone, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So it really, I like to think of reaching menopause, or that first initial year of postmenopause, as an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tap on the shoulder, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to say, oh, hey, Priya, you've got 5 more decades to live. And so, how do you want to invest in those 5 decades? Well, you could get your cholesterol and your blood pressure checked, because you already know that heart disease is the number one premature killer of women. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us think this is a conversation about menopause hormone therapy. It certainly can be and should be. But what if we got every woman to their doctor on their
Mm-hmm.
50th birthday
Mm-hmm.
to have their blood pressure and cholesterol checked? We could
Yeah.
prevent heart
Mm-hmm.
disease in this country. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one, that's definitely one reason. Another reason, and it's very under discussed, is, I have a passion for talking about vulva and vaginal health.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people and a lot of practitioners assume that it just has to do with, sexual activity and
Mm-hmm.
insertion into the vagina. It has so much more to do with our quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
I work with individuals who are not sitting comfortably. They can't wear the jeans they want to. They've stopped going to yoga or exercising because of the changes to their vulva and vaginal health. So it's a conversation that can really impact our health and our quality of life. And then I think that, like, my own mother didn't get the care that she deserved, and she experienced reoccurring urinary tract infections, reoccurring UTIs. And the infection went untreated. And so this is very debilitating for older people. So we've got to take care of, well, basically, the bottom line is we have to take care of women at every age and stage.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes back to, what we talked about before, the speak menopause, where you talk about impact, and I think that is really going to help to actually know, like, what are the after effects, or like how is it
Yes.
impacting your quality of life. So it's not just related to one thing, it can be multiple things that are affected.
So
um
true.
Um, and then I think another really important question was also about if you go to the doctor and let's say, the person feels dismissed or unheard, um, when you want to follow up after that, how do you address that conversation? Like, do you tell your doctor, okay, this is how I felt in my appointment before? How would you approach that conversation?
Great question. I think that it's going to vary depending on the individual and how comfortable you feel. You can definitely talk about feelings if you want to. You can also choose to realize that you're sitting with a scientist with a lot of information exchanged. And so you can go back to your appointment as a follow up and say, I thought about what we talked about at the last appointment. And here's what I have gone and learned. And now I'm here today to ask you, one, am I X? Two, am I Y? Three, can we do, and just really like
Mm-hmm.
put it on a recipe card
Mm-hmm.
and know that yes, our feelings are important. It is definitely, you deserve those feelings. I see you. Come to the Menopause Chicks community. We'll talk it through. But we have to understand what is available to us in that appointment and what tools are in our doctor's toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I can't speak for everyone and all physicians, but you might be looking for empathy in the wrong clinic appointment,
Mm-hmm.
right? You might be able to get a prescription from that person, but you
Mm-hmm.
might never feel validated. And you
Mm-hmm.
might have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
You can get your validation somewhere else as long as you can get either the prescription, the referral, or the lab requisition to have something, tested. That would be a win. And yeah, I think we always have to realize what we have, what the person in front of us has in their toolkit, what they're actually able to do for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Um, and then another question that I was also thinking about was that sometimes what happens is, when you go to the doctor and, you're talking about your sleep, let's say, or maybe you're talking about, let's say, anxiety, they could recommend you just like, maybe sleeping pills or maybe like anxiety medication instead of maybe recommending HRT.
Yeah.
So I think that's also very common. So how would you approach that situation?
Yeah, so I often coach women to talk about their health goals. So lay out your flight plan.
Mm,
And if your flight plan is to blink your eyes and sleep tonight, then it is best to let your practitioner know that you are there looking for a sleep aid.
mm,
But if your flight plan is something different than that, you might say, look, I understand there are three or four options for me on the menu. I'm not interested in a antidepressant today. I'm not interested in a sleep medication today, but I am interested in exploring the benefits of progesterone therapy. And I've also heard that cognitive behavior therapy is helpful for people with insomnia. So, can you walk me through what would be the pros and cons of those two options? And then I know that the third option is on the list, but that's not on today's agenda.
okay, awesome. Awesome.
Wow,
Yeah.
I just came up with that.
No, that was amazing. And then, to close, if every woman who's listening right now, they had to take one thing away from our conversation today, what would you want it to be?
I would want them to look in the mirror and say these words out loud. I deserve to feel amazing.
Mhm.
And I
Awesome.
want you to underscore the word deserve because often we forget that
Mhm.
we deserve to feel well. We are not meant to suffer. This is a
Mhm.
shift in our hormones, it's a shift in how we age, but there are easy, viable solutions on the menu, and we can do amazing things.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is really going to help a lot of women who are going through any of these symptoms, or perimenopause, or they've reached menopause, but also women who are younger and they maybe want to prepare themselves, and have like a toolkit.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be a great resource for them. So I'll definitely share all the links and visuals in the description. And if you want to reach out to Shirley or join her Facebook community as well, you can do that as well. So I'll also post links to that as well. But thanks for coming on, Shirley, today. And thank you so much for your time and then your knowledge and information that you've shared with us today. I know it's going to be very, very helpful. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you so much to Shirley for coming back and sharing something so tangible and actionable. Grab her doctor's script. Link is going to be in the description below. And if this helped you, share it with a woman who's been struggling to get answers from her doctor. She needs this. See you next time.